see if this works. Oh, wrong way. Oh, that's why the forward button's worn off. That's where everybody uses. Okay. The end of a year. Thank everyone for coming today, and we want to welcome our visitors. You are honored guests, as I'm sure has already been stated. But it's a good day. We're going to close out 2023. It's been an interesting year, and this has been our theme for this year, as for me and my house. And here were all our sub-themes, one for each month. And the question I have for you is, what do all of these sub-themes require to do this, to serve, to be pure in heart, to worship? What do all these things require? What is the foundation of this thing? What's the basis? We've been singing about it today. It's faith. We have to have faith in God to do those things that we set out to do this past year. And, you know, when someone asks you, what is faith? What's the definition of faith? We'll all go to Hebrews 11:1. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. But I'll ask you, God is not seen. I mean, we have evidence in the world around us. There's evidence of God. Moses got to see the Lord, except for his face, probably the closest, I believe, that any man has seen God. He got to see God in his most truest form. And Jesus was God in human form, and lots of people got to see him. Wouldn't that be amazing to see God, to experience God's presence in the shoes of Moses, or to be around Jesus when he was on this earth? That to me is an amazing thing. But, like I said, we can still experience God and experience his presence, as Jesus explained to Nicodemus in John 3 and verse 8. We don't see the wind, but we see the effects of the wind. And I'll put to you today that we see the effects of God, not just, like I said, in nature and in grand things, but in your own lives. So I guess the question I want to put to you is, I want you to think back in 2023 and before. How has God made his presence known to you personally? I'll give you a few stories of my own. I don't want to say stories. Stories has a connotation of fiction to me. Accounts from God's word that closely resemble experiences that I've had in the past year. Colin read Mark 14 for us. Let's turn to Luke 22, Luke's version of the same event. And starting in verse 8, it says, "And Jesus sent Peter and John, saying, 'Go and prepare the Passover for us, that we may eat it.' They said to him, 'Where do you want us to prepare it?' And he said to them, 'When you have entered the city, a man will meet you carrying a pitcher of water. Follow him into the house that he enters. You shall say to the owner of the house, the teacher says to you, where is the guest room which I may eat the Passover with my disciples? He will show you a large furnished upper room, prepare it there.'" Now, this account has some similarity to me. Now, granted, this is my opinion, but all three accounts that I'm going to tell you today made me think of these passages. And the first one here, let's change a couple names. Let's go from Peter and John to Rob and Paul. And let's say, yeah, I'm getting the look. Let's say that Rob and Paul go into Kaysville. They say, where can we meet? Or where can we get a room to have worship while this building's being renovated? And they met with the Russin brothers, or the directors of the Russin Brothers Mortuary. And they gave up their auditorium. We'll only need it for 6 weeks. 6 weeks. Turn into 6 months, as construction projects do. But they willingly gave us their space to meet, just as we are here. I question that as just as when two guys show up and ask you, hey, I need a room to meet with a bunch of my people. Those guys did it. The owner of the house did it for Jesus. Didn't have to give any kind of, no argument whatsoever. Just did it. Our second example is a little bit more personal. In 2 Kings 6, this is a very obscure account, and I always wondered why this was in here. 2 Kings 6, verses 1 through 7. Now the sons of the prophets said to Elisha, behold, now the place before you where we are living is too limited for us. Please let us go to the Jordan, and each of us take from there a beam, and let us make a place there for ourselves, where we may live. So he said, go. Then one said, please be willing to go with your servants. And he answered, I shall go. So he went with them, and when they came to the Jordan, they cut down trees. But as one was felling a beam, the axe head fell into the water, and he cried out and said, alas, my master, for it was borrowed. The man of God said, where did it fall? And when he showed him the place, he cut off a stick and threw it in there and made the iron float. And he said, take it up for yourself. So he put out his hand and took it. Why did God, through Elijah, make an axe head float on water? It's like, if you're going through with contextually, it's like, what is the point of this? But then I heard somebody's, it's like, aha. It was an aha moment for me. This was to show that God cares about minor things, things that matter to us. This guy borrowed an axe head. Now, you can't just roll down to the hardware store, Home Depot. You lose your axe head and you go get another one. This one was axe heads, I'm sure, were probably a pretty expensive thing, was probably passed down to generations. But this one was borrowed. That's even worse. That's like me borrowing your only vehicle and then going and totaling it. Now what? But God, it mattered to this guy. It was a big deal to this guy. Now, we may not always get the favorable response in every big deal that we have in our life, but I would challenge you to think about events in your own lives that could have gone way worse. But to me, through the grace of God, they turned out for your benefit. For me, I work for an engineering firm, and we are making a braking system for a spaceship. Never been done before. We've never done it before. We've never made anything goes into space before. So it's been fraught with challenges. Challenges partially because of our ignorance, because of our prime contractor's ignorance, because they had never done space before either. But we were behind schedule, and we were getting ready to go out and do what's known as environmental testing. We were going to take our brake, our wheel brake, and we were going to vibrate it. We're going to hose it down with salt water. We're going to electrocute it. We're going to do everything that it's going to experience out in the real world, in space. Freeze it, heat it, all that jazz. And it came time to go out and start the testing process. And the first thing we do is we vibrate it. Tens of 15 Gs, something like that, whatever it is that it's going to experience on takeoff. Takeoff is a pretty violent process. And we had this huge fixture to put this thing on, to put it on a big vibration table. And one of the things we couldn't find before we were going to ship it out to the testing house was this gigantic nut. Now you say, oh, that's not a big deal. I can't go to Ace Hardware and just buy another one of these bad boys. This was specially made for that fixture, and it was a matter of, I didn't care who found it. I just wanted it found. I'm the guy that ships all the stuff. And it had been challenging enough with our contractor that, we didn't need to be able to, or we didn't need to have to slip our schedule one more time because of we couldn't find this. And I looked everywhere. We have 2 locations. I mean, they're down the street from each other, but tore them both up. And I was sitting there, and I don't know what we're going to do. We can't test without this thing. And I just prayed. I says, God, please. And I got done praying, and I look over at the shelf. It's like, I didn't look in that box. And lo and behold, there's my axe head floating on the shelf. And we shipped it out, and it failed. But I got it out on time. That's okay. And it's one of those things that better fail now than on the way to space. Like, once again, that's just a personal example. And this is the verse I thought of when this happened. This is my axe head. Another example is in Genesis 24, starting in verse 12. Abraham sends his servant to find a bride for Isaac. Genesis 24:12. And he said, O Lord, the God of my master Abraham, please grant me success today and show loving kindness to my master Abraham. Behold, I am standing by the spring, and the daughters of the men of the city are coming out to draw water. Now may it be that the girl to whom I say, please let down your jar, so that I may drink, and who answers, drink, and I will water your camels also. May she be the one whom you have appointed for your servant Isaac. And by this I will know that you have shown loving kindness to my master. Before he had finished speaking, behold, Rebekah, who was born to Bethuel, the son of Milcah, the wife of Abraham's brother Nahor, came out with her jar on her shoulder. The servant ran up to meet her and says, please let me, skipping down to verse 17. The servant ran down to meet her and said, please let me drink a little water from your jar. She said, drink, my lord, and she quickly lowered her jar to her hand and gave him a drink. Now when she had finished giving him a drink, she said, I will draw also for your camels until they have finished drinking. In verse 21, meanwhile the man was gazing at her in silence to know whether the Lord had made his journey successful or not. I'm always surprised when I read this, and I pray that I am never the same as this man. God did exactly what he asked him to do, and he still questioned it. Before he finished praying, God was letting this unfold. My personal experience with this is I was selling a car for this guy, the guy that I got. I don't know if you've seen my little yellow Triumph TR3. The guy I got that from, his wife had passed away, and he asked me to sell her car because he had never sold anything on KSL or any of that jazz, and he knew I did it quite a bit. So I said, yeah, sure. So I listed his car on KSL, and I get a text pretty quick, and it wasn't a scammer. I was pretty pleased about that. The guy said, can I meet you in a couple days or whatever? He was the first guy, and we had made arrangements. So I said, okay. And then right after we get done texting, and we kind of had a time and date set to get together, I get a call. And this guy just said, man, I really want to buy that car. You know, I'll give you whatever. I'll meet you right now and come get it right now. And I said, look, I would love to help you. But I've given my word to this other guy. I says, if that thing falls apart, when I took his number, I says, I will get back with you. And before we even hung up from the phone, I get a text from that other guy. He says, yeah, forget it, dude. So I called that guy right back and I says, let's do this. This is your car. Those were, yeah, maybe they're lame little accounts to you. But to me, they're easy, non-miraculous ways that God has shown me that He is involved in each and every one of our lives in just a simple day-to-day minutia. In Proverbs 8:17, He loves those who love Him, and those who diligently seek Him will find Him. And I say that because this book, the owner's manual of our lives, He doesn't change. Yeah, He did those things to Abraham's servant, to Elisha, to Peter and John, and He does the same thing today to you and me. I want to leave you with this verse. Now the may of God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, so that you will abound in hope by the power of the Holy Spirit. I hope that you can look back and in the 2024, look and see God being evident in your life. I thank you for your attention. If you want to have last year's theme and sub-themes, there are plenty of bookmarks in the foyer, free 90 free. And for all the children, if you show this to Mr. PJ next week, he will give you 2 Smarties. So, got that going for you. Once again, I want to thank you for being here. Thank the viewers on Zoom, viewers on YouTube. Remember to like and subscribe, turn on notifications. But no, thank you. Happy 2023 to everybody. If there's anyone that has a need for the prayers of the saints, please come forward as you stand to sing.